Welcome back. The text of a new draft constitution for Syria, drawn up with the help of Russian advisors during this week's peace talks in Kazakhstan, has been leaked by opposition sources. It calls for the word Arab to be dropped from the country's official name. The document stresses the need for Syria's territorial integrity to be upheld and also for Parliament's powers to be expanded. It also bars the Syrian military from involvement in politics. In addition, the draft outlaws discrimination on the basis of gender, language or religion, and it also removes the requirement for the president to be a Muslim. However, several opposition representatives say that the paper's not a draft, it's just an article, and they can't confirm all the points listed. Work on a new Syrian constitution should be a priority for the upcoming talks in Geneva. That's what Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov had to say while meeting Syrian opposition members in Moscow.
The draft constitution tries to find and bring together the common points that we heard from the Syrian government and the opposition. We are talking about a proposal transferred to the Syrian parties without any intention to impose anything. The Riyadh opposition group has been calling for several conditions to be observed to start the talks. Now the ceasefire is in place, no more preconditions should be made. If we look at all the opposition's caprices, the Syrian regulation process would never start.
There is a significant restructuring of Syria that's envisioned here. The thing that I found also very striking is the equality that all citizens would have before the law, and you really wonder then how various anti-government groups like Mohammed al-Lusha's Jaish al-Islam will respond to that. I think it shows that there will be more of a balance of powers between the executive and the elected legislature. There's also provision for certain seats being set aside in the government for minority communities. I don't know, as they negotiate this, how that will work out exactly, but in a country as diverse as Syria, that seems like a good idea.
Donald Trump's administration is reportedly drawing up an executive order to significantly reduce America's funding for the United Nations, as well as other international organizations. The White House is said to be seeking an overall 40% cut in funding. Trump's previously slammed the United Nations for being more trouble than it's worth.
The UN has such tremendous potential, not living up to its potential. There is such tremendous potential, but it is not living up. When do you see the United Nations solving problems? They don't. They cause problems. So if it lives up to the potential, it's a great thing, and if it doesn't, it's a waste of time and money.
Neil Harvey asked human rights activist Peter Tatchell and Stefan Gajec from the Institute for European Studies for their thoughts on current UN policy.
It should not take a blind eye on unilateral actions of ad hoc coalitions like that one that is currently bombing Yemen, led by Saudi Arabia, or by NATO that bombed the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia without the permission of Security Council.
I don't think it's right that any one or two or even three countries in the Security Council can block action. So I think one reform we need is to end the requirement for unanimity in the Security Council, to perhaps make it a two-thirds majority vote. I
disagree with that. I think that the rules that we already have should be applied, and that they should not be overrun on the basis of quasi-morality, such as policies that, like a responsibility to protect. Because in practice, these policies lead to a group of countries or a country bullying others.
The UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon pretty much said that Saudi Arabia had pressured him to remove them from a human rights report because of the threat that they were going to withdraw substantial funding. Now, US, of course, is also a big contributor, 22%. Do the countries that put in a lot of money have too much sway in what goes on there?
I think Ban Ki-moon stood firm against that pressure from Saudi Arabia.
Well, he did say that he'd removed Saudi Arabia from a damning human rights report, and he said it was one of the most painful and difficult decisions he'd ever had to make as Secretary General. I mean, he didn't say it explicitly, but there was heavy, heavy inference that pressure had come from sources to keep Saudi Arabia off that report.
Well, even if there are one or two examples, that does not denigrate the fundamental principle that the United Nations generally does produce fair and impartial reports.
The problem is that the UN has been undermined, first of all, by NATO and also by the United States unilaterally. We either apply the rules or we don't.
Right, that's the news for now. I'll update you again in just over half an hour. Boom Bust is next on why the water bills in American households could be about to skyrocket.